Alright, so in this third video, what I'm going to try and do is convert this side on the motor to a pulley system. So this hub right here and then this hub on the jack shaft will be two pulleys, and then I'll have a belt connecting them. But definitely dying. Alright, so turn key on. Nothing comes out of there. Alright, so I just remembered that the fuel pump is just, it's kind of got, oh, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's got like wires that just disconnect from it. So I think if I can just get my leads in there from my multimeter, I can just test them. So right now the key's on, that's when the fuel pump should be on. I don't know what's negative and I don't know what's positive. Alright, it's getting 12.2 volts. I don't know if it was magic, but somehow now this thing is actually working fine. Perfect. So, because I had to tighten down my belt so much to get it to not slip, I noticed an issue where because I only had one pillow block, it was like twisting on itself, because there was also a bushing in here that could move on. So I had the option to either add another pillow block on the end of this or redo this whole system. If you remember, the transmission also had the same rubber bushing as the motor does. So I cut that off and then I slid a shaft inside of it and welded it. I'm gonna do that same exact thing on here on the motor. That way it'll be bolted onto the motor, and then I'll just have another one of these pillow blocks to hold it, make it solid. Alright, check this out. I didn't film it, but I got the shaft laid down, and on the inside of this it's milled down a little bit. So this little lip right here, I think I gotta grind down a little bit. The shaft's not all the way seated as far back as it can go, but because of that nut on the flywheel, it has to have enough room to fit in here, but that won't be a big deal. Just to die grind some of that, and then it should bolt up. Get the shaft cut to length, put the pulley on it, and we'll be driving soon enough. Alright, so that's pushed back in there enough that it won't hit the nut. It's welded in here, and because it was pushed back that much, there was a bevel that I welded into, and then I welded around the outside of that bevel also, so that's kind of why it almost looks clumped up, but see the nice heat mark on there. I think it was a pretty good weld. I'm not going to do anything on the backside quite yet, just in case. I don't think this will break at all. Right now, the only force that this weld's really holding is twisting force, and on a 12 horsepower motor, I don't know how much that thing's really giving off. So, all right. So the original mount that I made for this support, like you can see the engine's at an angle, so this shaft's already at an angle, and the original mount that I made is so close to fitting that if I just twist one side to fit, all that I gotta do is throw this washer right there, and there's no wiggle room at all. So that's perfect. Don't gotta make a new mount for that. I do, though, have to weld a triangle brace right here because this does bend a little bit, so I'll do that, bolt it in, and then we'll be able to put the belt, pulley, then belt, and line everything up and weld in. Where did I put it? This is gonna be my tensioner. It's just tacked in there for now, but I have it at a little bit of an angle because it needs to be. So that'll go in there. All right, we got everything hooked up. Now the one thing is, I have the battery jumper hooked up. Even though the battery was at 12.2 volts, it was incredibly hard to turn this system over, so we'll see if the engine really has enough power to move it. Got the wheels up on jack stands, so let's see. Okay, so I got this one all torn down even more, and what I'm deciding to do is put a normal pulley on this. And I got another tractor for some nicer parts, so let's figure out how we can take more of this apart, put a pulley on here, and then run a belt below back up to that pulley. Okay, from that last clip you just saw, that was roughly 2 years ago, and this tractor really hasn't changed. So after I decided to put the belt system on it, got it together real quick, didn't take very long. Actually started right up, went fine, but all forward gears spun the tires backwards. So that left me really mad because I was working on this thing and I had a lot of like stupid money invested into it. Like especially with like these jack shafts and stuff that I didn't use. All this stuff just been collecting dust here. So I'm gonna clean this up, get this out of here. I got some organizing to do on my crap. Finally have an empty bay. Gonna show you what it looks like with the tire spinning up on jack stands here. And then what we're gonna try and do is flip this rear end over and see what we can get done. Because this has been like a goal of mine for a long time, was to get one of these to go fast. I kind of have to do it, so I'm hoping once that thing's running, we can line it up against this Viper here and race it. We'll see. So it's a brand new battery, now it's dead. Okay, so you can see that's completely opposite of what we want. I'm gonna start tearing apart this back, seeing if I can flip this transaxle over. Okay, so this rear end came out pretty good. So I was angle grinding, so I just covered the fuel pump, but I cut this piece off that held this side. It was almost impossible to get that out without taking the clutch apart, which I didn't feel like doing. And this bracket that usually sits like this is gonna have to be cut off and flipped anyways, because that's gonna be flipped. So I didn't feel bad cutting it off to cut the other side, but pretty much just fell right out and installed itself. Really didn't take long. So this linkage in here is quite complicated. At first, once you look at it, you can start to understand it, but a lot of it we don't need. What I'm thinking is that pedal is going to be used for the brake and the clutch, and this, which is usually used for the clutch and the shifting, this is only going to be used for the shifting. We're not going to use that for the clutch anymore, which will eliminate this funky contraption. So, but I'm going to lay this upside down for a bit and see if any oil comes out, see if it leaks. It shouldn't, but we'll see. This is a breather, so we'll cover that up, or we'll like loop it up. As long as we have the breather higher than the highest point, oil shouldn't come out. So okay, so I have this transmission flipped over. It's the axles are just sitting on jack stands here. You can see the oil levels right here. We're gonna have to make sure we fill it up to the tippy top. And yeah, because obviously this was the part meant to be the sump. Now it's down there. Shouldn't matter as long as we just keep her nice and topped off. It's not like it's gonna be going 50 miles an hour when it used to go 5. So now I'm gonna tilt up the front, and I'll most likely have to cut out where that pillow block is and re-weld something in there, but that won't be too big of a deal. Okay, so I quite literally just flipped over these brackets that I cut off and now have the transmission just sitting here, and I'm gonna tack this bracket in. There's so much crap here from the old system. Would have been a lot easier if I was just doing this first, but you know, I had no idea. Okay, so I'm at a pretty good spot right now. Here's this old transaxle mount. What I'm gonna do is, now it like bolts in here, fits perfect. I'm gonna weld this part up and weld it right to that part of the frame. Weld this to that part of the frame. And then once this is fully supported, then I'll mount this, which is just a support for the belt, which will be pushing down on the edge of the clutch. This really shouldn't hold any of the weight of the transmission, transaxle, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's tacked, that side's tacked. This bracket's flipped over, it's tacked on this side, but now it's higher on this side, so I gotta cut a little bit. Threw the belt back on, and you can see it's a little crooked because this used to sit further over this way, not in the center. So luckily, I was thinking when I did this, and this is only tacked, so this I can break off real easily, move it over, and for testing purposes, we should be able to use this belt. I might need one that's a little tighter later on, but yeah. Okay, so even though the fuel tank is out, actually the fuel tank would bolt right up, but we're gonna see if this thing goes forward. So this shifter, if you pull it all the way forwards, like when it was on top, you pulled the shifter all the way forwards, it pulled the thing all the way forwards to be into fifth. So pulled this all the way forward, should be in fifth. We're gonna see what happens. Might kill the fuel pump. It was a cheapie because there's no fuel running through it. Oh, I gotta hook up the switch. Yeah, this switch needs to be hooked up to here for it to start. Let me paper clip that. So that might work. Let's see. Oh, the belt popped off. Hey, it's turning it forwards though. Okay. So it turned it forwards. I guess I gotta work on this belt tensioner. The way that is, I guess it likes to jump. Maybe, so this belt's too long. What I need is to angle it a little bit and then we'll be okay. Okay, so everything is welded except for these pulleys, which I need to get a shorter belt just because the transmission's moved. Everything's welded. The transmission unbolts very easily now compared to what it used to. Leaking a little bit of fluid just the way I have that breather. Everything's welded, we're good. We know that it spins forwards now, which is awesome. So I'm gonna end this video here after like 2.5 years of making part 3. I think part 4 is gonna actually be a good test drive. So, yep, thanks for watching.